the drop down elements. For that, I am going to create a new class. So I'm giving the class name as example select and then public static void main. Click on finish. And I'm taking the base script which is open to which is used to open the browser. Let me copy paste that here, and you can remove the unnecessary code. And for this application, I'm going to make use of, for this particular web element, I will show you using this URL. Okay, let me open this manually so that you will be able to see what is this URL. See here, so you'll be able to see this, and here you have a drop down where you wanted to identify the drop down, and from this you wanted to identify some element. Let us say I wanted to identify India. So if you wanted to identify India, how you are going to do that? Right click, inspect, and then you see that element has a select tag. See here, select tag name is equal to country, and also it has value option also. Okay, so you will be able to identify either select by visible text or select by value or select by index. There are three ways you can identify the element drop down. For that, what you have to do is you go here. First, you need to define the element. You cannot make use of driver dot find element by simply to identify the drop down. What you have to do is you have to make use of, what I'm trying to say here is, because generally how we do, driver dot find element by dot name, and then you have the name property. What is the name property you have in this application? Your name property is country. So if you are going to make use of only this, and then you will not be able to identify the drop down. You will not have any option to select the value. So that's the reason we will not use this method only to identify the drop downs. What we have to do is you just take it as out aside, drop down box, or you can write for country, drop down box country. You can give any name for your variable. New select, within the box you have to write whatever the element you are trying to identify, colon. See here, you are going to import that select. See selenium.support.ui. So once you identify that, then you should be able to identify the drop down with the respective text. Dot select by visible text. You have to select by visible text, and then India you have to write. Now if you run this program, see what is going to happen. I'm just closing this application. Go back and then run the script. See what will happen. It will identify the drop down with India. Now see here, what I am trying to do is I am trying to identify the country drop down. This using, what is that property we have used? What is the method we have used? Select by visible text. So instead of that, you can do one more method, that is drop down country dot select by index. So index, you all know the basics of array concept. It starts from 0. So that means first element of that particular drop down will get identified. Now run the program and see what is the first element. Run the program and see what is going to happen. So once you run the program, it will see for that particular element which is the index of 0, that will get identified. So that is how also you will be able to identify the drop down values. So once that is done, let's say your first value might have identified, that is Albania is the first one. Let's say I wanted to identify the second one. That could be the first index. So I wanted to, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Let us say if I give 3, it should identify Andorra. That is what we are looking for. Now I'll give 3 and see whether it is identifying 3 or not. Run the program and see what is going to happen. It should identify Andorra in the drop down. This is using index. So you can use as many options as you have in the application on the Selenium WebDriver methods. So it's not necessary that you have to go with only one method. Okay. So you can make use of the method whichever you are comfortable with and which your current project is following. See here, Andorra got selected. So in the same manner, if you wanted to identify using value, so you, instead of this select by index method, what you can do is you are going to have one more method called, you just write this one, dot select by value. Select by value, you have to go to the application and then identify what is the value. I'm just writing India again. So select by visible text, select by value, whatever the value you have in the box, then automatically it will identify. So this is the way you will be able to identify your elements which are for drop down. This is very, very important. In your any of the web applications, you will have this drop down as a mandatory element in most of the web applications. That's the reason you should know how to identify this element. So only thing what you need to remember, when you are selecting the element, when you are inspecting the properties, it should have select tag. Similarly, we will see the regular applications what we see, that also we will go and see with one more example. Go to this application and then see whether you are able to identify the other select elements or not. You go to this page and then I wanted to identify this drop down, skills drop down, or country drop down, or this one, whatever. So let us say if I have to identify this one, right click, and then if you don't see that, I have already told you, press F12 and then go to this element and then click on that. So you should know one thing, that is you should have a select tag before you identify anything. So now I wanted to identify by this and then I wanted to identify something like Android. This is what I wanted to identify. So how I am going to do that? So for that, what you have to do is I'm just commenting the URL which I have given and I'm taking the new URL. So I'm just writing the new URL here and then find by, what is the code we have, that we have to see. See here, you select this and then identify this element, select, and then what is the property you have? You don't have name, but you have ID property. ID value is skills. So you go here and then you have to change this by dot ID, you have to change, and then you have to write skills. That is what is there in the drop down. So here, if you wanted to change the drop down name to skills, you can write skill. Now what we are going to do is you have to write this drop down value dot select by visible text. You can use any of these three options. Android. You need to ensure that you are giving the right spelling, otherwise the script will not work. So now I have just closed the application and I'm trying to run that again. So I'll close this application, Android. See here, Android. And now I am closing this application and then running the program one more time. Now it should be able to identify the drop down with Android. See, so for whatever we are doing, the window is not getting maximized. Okay, we are doing it manually. See here, Android, but it is not getting maximized. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to maximize the window as soon as my script opens the URL. So what you have to do is you have to go to your 18th line where you are invoking the browser, driver dot manage dot, there is an option called maximize window driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. If you use this method, your browser, as soon as it opens, it will maximize itself and then it will run the program. So that is very, very important when you are running the program. So you no need to do anything manually. Whatever the activities we do manually, you can instruct your automation to do that using automation script. See, that got enabled and then it identified the skills as Android. So this is how you will be able to identify the elements. So in the previous class, I have told you the radio buttons also, how you are going to identify. You will be going to that inspect element and you will try to identify the elements which you are aware of. If it is name is there and ID is there, then you are able to identify. But if it is common between these two, see here, for male and female also the name property is same. So when it is same, you should not use the property. If two elements are having the same kind of property values, you will not be able to recognize the element uniquely. So something like, for example, if I ask you to go to a classroom and identify a person called Srinivas, let's say there are five Srinivas are there. So if I tell only Srinivas, you will not be able to identify the correct Srinivas. But if I tell you the last name, that means one person last name is A, another person last name is B, C, D, like that. There are five Srinivasas. If I tell you identify Srinivas with the last name E, in that case, you will be able to identify it uniquely. Similarly, if you see here, male also you have the name property radio options, and female also, if you see, the property is radio options. In this case, you should not take name property and you don't have ID here. So in such cases, we are going to make use of XPath concept, or else you can make use of locator, another locator class. So there are various locators we already aware. So we know name, ID, class, and then you have partial test, link text, CSS selector, and then XPath. So you can make use of the other locators when something is not working. That also we are going to see in our subsequent sessions.